And welcome back to The Way of the Wandering Wizard. I am, as always, Robert Andrew Meredith Kennedy, and I am a pure and open channel for the finest vibrations of divine love and light, made manifest here in service to Gaia and those who travel with her. Bit of a mouthful, so most folks know me as Bob the Wizard, or Gandalf the Wise. Love it. In my last little videoette, I was waxing lyrical about recovery through roleplay. And towards the end I allowed the wizard to speak, hence the reason why the video has been cut short. It's a long and interesting 10 minutes on subatomic physics, one for a future videoette once my story is told. Now, casting my mind back, while my recovery through roleplay has been running, I, of course, do many other bits of work. As part of Ravenswood Services, I had to go and be rebadged into the noble art of using a chainsaw. I've been using a chainsaw for many, many years, and you pick up bad habits. Unlearning those bad habits and going back to felling standards, shall we say, was an interesting few weeks of my life. I loved my courses. I said I really enjoy my time in the forest. And although it sounds counterintuitive that somebody with a love of nature will spend part of their time cutting down trees, it can seem at odds with an understanding of life. Now in many ways, I suppose, part of modern life we're working woods. Most of my work, I have to say, these days is clearing invasive species. Wonderful plants that we've brought back on our travels across the world, which have found our habitat in the UK to be particularly sustaining, shall we say. And many of these plants have run rampant through our natural woodland. They have their place in formal gardens and in their native spaces around the world. Sadly, in the UK, in our woodland spaces, these species can take over. Now, as an ethical hippie, I like to release their energy back to Tibet, just the way I like to work. That said, as many have found in working through trauma, because at the end of the day, this is what most of my sharing is about, I've found that my physical work in woodlands, particularly the work on Ashdown, which I'll cover in a minute, has again been instrumental to keeping me grounded, keeping me anchored in our day-to-day experienced reality. Because, like many post-2012 and post-trauma, my mind can be a spinning thing, so anchoring into that physical work has been instrumental in my own healing. Being out in woodland, obviously, amongst nature, where what nature exhales, oxygen-rich air, is what I require, or what we require. That touching base with a world that is evolving, but has been present throughout the evolution of the bodies we find ourselves in. We're currently walking around in, experiencing life in. That being back in that environment is of benefit to us, mind, body and soul. Should come as a surprise to nobody watching this. It's why we work with Gaia, to support this beautiful world that we live in, because it's essential to our well-being. Now, I have been blessed as I look back in my life, really. I have had and having so much fun. Part of my work post-accident, as these circumstances run while working on the forest as a role player, you're aware of the greater forest. We interact with the greater forest. Obviously, the custodians of the forest in the Ashdown Forest Rangers. As I've mentioned in the past, trying to get to my fabled Ashdown badge that I'd always wanted ever since I was a child, had got me my job on Pippingford Park. Had seen me through my accident, connected me with the role-playing world which had been such a huge, and is such a huge part of my recovery. The way that my life started to connect up post-accident has been joyous. Well, conversations flow, and a post had become available actually working on Ashdown. They required a part-time grazier, someone with an understanding of livestock, to help maintain the grazing project and to fit in with the estates team doing the work I'd been doing on Pippingford Park for years. Well, I sent in my CV. I knew most of the team anyway. I had an interview. I got the job. It's a short-term contract, filled the summer when I wasn't out in the woods doing our woodland tree maintenance, clearing invasive species, bonsaiing a woodland to preserve it. As strange as it may seem. The work was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. I love Ashdown Forest. It's become a huge part of not only my recovery, my life. To be out there wearing the badge was wonderful. Interacting with the public, explaining what the work of the forest is, the fact that it's not all trees, it's habitat preservation, that it's not all about irritating people or stopping them from having fun or fires. There is a reason for it. Did I enjoy striding around in a kilt and an Ashdown t-shirt? Oh yes. It was a wonderful summer of work. I got on well with the team. I said, really, watching the forest day to day, to be back on the forest a few days a week, and in between that role playing was just a wonderful chapter of my life and balance. I went on after that contract had finished. A newer worker was brought on board, a good friend who currently does so much work on the forest. Thank you, brother. As do they all. Thank you, brothers and sisters. It's a great team looking after a fantastic natural resource. Please look after it. I'll only get miffed. So wanderings aside, I'd got on well with the team. I get on well with people, so I'm told. They wanted a volunteer coordinator. Now, voluntary work is something which I've been involved in all my life. As a scout leader, we volunteer. As a cub leader, we volunteer. I've volunteered as a healer in a hospice, but that will be one for a later chapter. There is something about giving of our time, our effort, our energy, or our skills back without financial reward, which is a benefit. Now, clearly, as a role as a volunteer coordinator, I can't stand there and say I was a volunteer. I was paid to look after the people that were volunteering, or part of the team that was. Those working parties are just essential to our natural resources. If you have the time and the capacity, please volunteer. The work is so rewarding. To be able to sit there at the end of a day and see land cleared and all the rest, and in many ways, that old adage, my father, bless him in his wisdom, always points out, many hands make light work. To see what a team of people can achieve, clearing land, putting in dams, somewhere where you can go back and look at your work, that comes with its own reward. So if this sounds like a little bit of a recruiting campaign for getting out there and getting involved in your community, it is. I personally found that, as have many, that strangely in giving to others, it helps us to deal with our own. So there is a selfish motivation of a wizard. In helping others, we gain that reward, that sense of community. Now, if that's not healing in action, I don't know what is. To be performing back on the world, literally in there, each of us working with the world. What better way to heal the world? To understand the natural environment we all live in. Even though so many of us live our lives divorced of what reality truly is. So, as much as I'd love you to be watching me all day, the sun is shining. Out you go, children. Have fun. Pick up your crisp packets, or I'll get miffed. I'd like to finish my little immersion into the natural world and the joys that it can bring with the tale of something that was promised to me way back when I was in hospital, and that was the chance to travel, because it does bring up a funny story. As I may have mentioned, my family are blessed to have Dutch connections and Dutch relatives. I was given a book on the Biesbosch, a stunning area, beautiful natural wetlands that sits in that area of Holland. But the family, or the Dutch family, have been associated with that area for quite some time. It's just wonderful to get back. So, when I was frame free, the children were still little, our first international adventure. Now, I was still fairly freshly scarred. We packed the children up and off we went to the local airport. First ever flight, hanging onto the seats, teaching them to pop their ears, the joys of life. On arrival in Schiphol Airport, a place that I have visited on a number of occasions, but definitely not with my wife and children, it had somewhat changed into the new, modern version that we were now walking through. I've been through the standard security checks. I've taken my boots off with my short leg, wobbling through. I passed through the metal detector. And of course, everything lit up. There was a large metallic mass on my right hip. Strangely, where I may be carrying a concealed weapon. I was ordered, hands up, onto the handprints on the glass screen in front of me. As the officer, hand on pistol, approached, my trousers fell down. I was wearing shorts at the time. Thankfully exposing my battle scars of my bottom. At which point he just turned around, motorbike. And I got through. We were picked up by the family and travelled off. Just beautiful to spend time in a different country with wonderful people. Thank you for that time. Now I was blessed to have a wonderful day or so out on the Biesbosch. Immersed in nature, I saw my first osprey, relatively close osprey. I met wonderful old characters, and again, just to be immersed in nature and talking with those who found nature to be such a healing experience. I can't speak highly of it enough. I can't thank the folk that have support the natural world enough. We've all watched the films. We've all seen the series. We all know that we have a window of opportunity. My personal recommendation would be that the more that we immerse ourselves in nature, the more that we connect with nature, the more that we gain that feeling of being a part of this natural world, the more likely we are to want to preserve it. And if that's my mission statement post-2012, then I'm glad to have taken it on board. Now, not everybody can get out to the forest. Not everybody's fit enough to be out there on a volunteer group, although at all levels of fitness, working together a good team, you'd be amazed at what we can do. You've still got window boxes. Just that reconnection brings us back into an understanding of what it is to be human, to be living within a body and not just living within our minds. For as much as a wizard's work is of the mind, part of our role is to remind us all that we're living in a world of mind that runs very quickly through the medium that I'm speaking to you through. That immediacy of life adds a pressure, and there is no bad thing in that. I thrive on a high pressure life. Look at the life I choose. But I've understood post-accident that needs to be balanced with long periods of time, deep, connected, back in the natural world. probably one of my greatest joys, on ways of really connecting and sharing those experiences with those that can't necessarily get out or who are tied in other worlds. Here, busy in the cities, I, along with many of my fellow bearded tits, share pictures. This is what I saw on my journey. This is what we found. This is how that land has improved. Because even seeing less stuff in our lives lifts us. And that, ultimately, is the purpose of life. To be connected and to be lifted. Now I'm starting to wax lyrical, so maybe I need to go out and ground myself in my garden. Thank you as always for listening to part of the recovery of a wise, wandering wizard. Take care, go well, and blessed be.